Welcome to the Inside Carolina podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. I'm joined by the crew because this is, I guess we classify it as an emergency podcast. It's a big deal podcast. Carolina officially to the Orange Bowl against Texas A&M. Before we get started, shout out to our sponsors, Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. Support them, and if you're a premium subscriber, you know you get that 10% off their order. It's worth it, and they're great friends of us. I have Buck Sanders, Jason Staples, and the Greg Barnes with me. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on short order. Buck, I'll start with you, man. I believe the Sugar Bowl in the 40s is the last comparable bowl bid that North Carolina's ever received. What's it mean to a guy that's followed the program for a long time?
Well, I appreciate you deferring to me because I am the senior statesman here. And it may not mean as much to some people as it does to people of my generation and older. Because believe it or not, there is, people older than I that are UNC football followers. But I've been well aware of the drought, the 70-year drought. I'm going to call 1950 as the last time North Carolina went to a major bowl. And I get it that for some people, they may not see a huge difference between North Carolina going to an Orange Bowl or going to, Gator Bowl or Cheez-It Bowl or whatever. But for folks of my generation, it's a huge deal. Going back to 1996, we thought that there was an extremely good chance that North Carolina would make a major bowl then. And that was, 26 years ago now, or 24 years ago. And we thought there was an excellent chance that North Carolina would make a major bowl back then. And then we played a Commonwealth state in a game whose name will never be mentioned again, beat North Carolina, and it was not to be. And I think Mack Brown got very frustrated in his first tenure at North Carolina by his inability to overcome what was, Florida State under Bobby Bowden, who was just curb stomping everybody in the ACC, and he had an opportunity in 96 to make it happen, and it didn't happen. But for folks of my generation, even though kids today may not see it that way, making the Orange Bowl is a huge deal. And Mack Brown is going to be able to use that huge deal to his credit when he goes on the recruiting trail in the next 2-3 years. So just speaking for North Carolina fans that have been long suffering and wanting to see something like this happen, it's a huge deal. And so I'll defer to my younger colleagues at this point and let them articulate their feelings about it. But for guys my age and older, it's a huge deal.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you there. Greg, I'll come to you next. You've covered this team over the last decade plus. You've seen the ups and downs. This for the program, for Mack Brown, we talked about the South Carolina win being a stamp. He's here. We talked about Miami win last week. That made a statement. Well, this is the ultimate statement so far for Mack Brown in his Carolina tenure, period. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I want to echo what Buck said there, because I really think more than anything, North Carolina getting to the Orange Bowl is a tip of the cap to the fan base and to the boosters and to the people who have been around for decades and decades supporting this program. I made the point after the Miami game that what North Carolina did against Miami, likely securing a Orange Bowl bid, that checked the box for what Mack Brown needed to accomplish this year. I don't think what happens in the Orange Bowl is really going to matter. I think what matters is that North Carolina was able to get to a major bowl, something they haven't done since, really the Cotton Bowl, I guess, in 1950, if you want to go to that one instead of 49 and the Sugar. But either or, we're talking 70 years. Just being able to say that, hey, we got to the Orange Bowl. We got to a major bowl where all the top teams in the country are playing. We're playing number 5 Texas A&M. Regardless of what happens in the game, that achievement is what matters. And I really think the Orange Bowl itself is this an opportunity for the fan base to just kind of enjoy it for a moment. This is big time football. This is why you pull for North Carolina. This is why you watch the games. This is why you follow recruiting. This is why you donate to the program, is to have these moments and to enjoy this. And I think the only sad thing about it is that typically you'd have like 4 weeks to really soak this in, right? Now you only have 2 weeks, but that's 2020 for you. But I really think that's what's most important here. And yes, absolutely, for this program, it's a stepping stone. No doubt North Carolina will be the favorite for the Coastal next year. Some people may go as far as saying they're the ACC favorite with Trevor Lawrence moving on. That'll be a debate that we can have a lot in the offseason. But the trajectory is not vertical, but it's pretty close. And this was a key part of that. Next is a division championship. And then after that, you're talking about ACC championships and contending for a spot in the playoff. But for Mack to do this in 2 years after North Carolina was really at the bottom of the barrel in 17 and 18, it's really a testament to what he's done. But again, this is a moment for the fan base and the boosters and everybody around the program to really soak in and enjoy.
Indeed. Jason, you've been around big-time football. Carolina is getting there under Mack Brown.
No doubt. And, here's the thing. The next step beyond a big-time bowl, first of all, the next step beyond making a big-time bowl is winning a big-time bowl. So it remains to be seen whether that step can be taken this year. But the next step after winning a major bowl like the Orange Bowl is the college football playoff. That's the next thing on the horizon. And here's the thing. This Orange Bowl matchup is against the team that had an argument that they should be in the college football playoff over, say, Ohio State, who played half a schedule. And this Texas A&M team would have gone unbeaten against that Ohio State schedule. Actually, I'm not sure North Carolina wouldn't have gone unbeaten against Ohio State's schedule, but I digress. You're looking at essentially this matchup between North Carolina and Texas A&M is the closest thing to to what would be a play-in game for the playoff in terms of the quality of the matchup and the quality of the competition. That short of being in the playoff, this is the closest that you get to getting to see how you measure up in that kind of context. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, you can't measure up without actually being in the arena. Carolina's definitely in the arena. It was interesting listening to the guys on ESPN, and they weren't really saying anything that we don't already know or talk about here. But Buck, they were saying, Texas A&M is going to be angry. They're playing, they should have been in the playoff. And then you add in the fact that Texas A&M's probably not in the playoff because Carolina's loss to Notre Dame probably propelled Notre Dame over Texas A&M, even though I tend to think Notre Dame was getting in no matter what. And we basically saw no matter what in the ACC championship game. But Buck, to that end, let's talk about – we'll break the game down in the next couple of weeks, but let's talk about what it means, win or loss, moving forward, and sort of expound on Jason's point there and Greg's point. I don't necessarily think it matters if North Carolina wins to accomplish what Mack wanted to accomplish, but from your standpoint, how important would be winning this one?
Let's start out by saying that in terms of the matchup, and Greg and his cadre of supporters, Gregory Hall and different ones will chime in. Jason Staples, myself, we'll talk about the matchup with Texas A&M. And actually, in this game, I feel much better about this game, North Carolina versus Texas A&M, than I did, for example, the matchup with Baylor in 2015. I thought that was a horrible matchup for North Carolina in 2015. But I think this game, and there's so much to unpack from what you were talking about, Tommy, and I'm going to give a tip of my hat to Jason here for a second and say, you know, if Texas A&M has an issue about not getting into playoffs, their issue isn't with Notre Dame, it's with Ohio State. You know, that's, you know, their complaint, if they have one, is not with Notre Dame. So it's the matchups as we move forward is going to be very important to watch. You know, I just off, you know, a thumbnail sketch, I'm going to say that Texas A&M's defense is better than North Carolina's defense, but their offense is not nearly as good as North Carolina's offense. So we'll see how that turns out. But go back to when Dabo Swinney was building the program at Clemson, and he faced West Virginia in a matchup. Greg will probably recall the date of that better than I will.
2012. Yeah.
They beat them, what, 70-14 or something like that?
70-33, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they got blown out, you know, in that Orange Bowl. And a lot of writers and a lot of observers say that that blowout loss in the Orange Bowl is what helped propel Clemson to where it is today. So I don't think it's regardless, to Greg's point, of how the Orange Bowl turns out, it's not a negative for North Carolina in any shape, form, or fashion. You know, I think the game could be 30-14 either direction. You know, I think that the first step is getting there, playing in that kind of stage, and just noticing, you know, on this Zoom call, Jason's reaction. I think he's letting his love for Jimbo Fisher take him down a very dark path.
It's more my looking at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. I think this Texas A&M team is the closest thing to Notre Dame out there, and that's what concerns me about this game. Now, that said, I mean, North Carolina competed with Notre Dame, so
yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion in either direction. So
I agree with that.
But getting to this point, I think, is a major takeaway, and we'll see how it goes from here. Regardless of the outcome, it could be as bad as the outcome between Clemson and West Virginia in 2012, I guess, Greg.
I would be shocked at that.
Yes, but it may be more like a North Carolina Notre Dame outcome this year. So, but either direction or a North Carolina victory, and to Greg's point, which I spoke to earlier, I really don't think it matters.
Yeah, and Tommy, to kind of build on what Buck said there, Clemson played in the Orange Bowl in 1981. And their next major bowl appearance was that game, January 2012, after the 2011 season against West Virginia. They'd played in the Meineke Car Care Bowl the year before and were 6-7. But they get to the Orange Bowl, get embarrassed, and then what happens? They go on a run where they win 11, 11, 10, 14, 14, 12, 15, 14 with 2 national championships. So it took a long while for them to get to where they are now, but they had to take that next step to get to a major bowl, and they got embarrassed. And I agree with Jason. I don't think that's going to happen in this game for North Carolina, but Clemson had to experience that. They had to experience that big stage, and that's part of the process. And so they use that. Say, okay, look, we got there. Now we have to play better once we get there. In each step, you build upon that. And that's why I say getting there is the accomplishment of this year. In year 2, year 3, you worry about the other things. And as we've talked about before, even last year, Mack Brown was saying, we think 2021 can be special, especially with Sam Howell coming back and the defense finally being mature and having enough talent there. 2020, we didn't know if this season was going to take place 8 months ago. And so for us to be sitting here.
I think we all ought to stop and appreciate the fact that North Carolina got in. We're even having this discussion. And North Carolina played 11 games this year and got through it all. Hat tip, to the staff and administration for getting us to this point. So back to you, Greg. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, but this is just North Carolina stole one this year, if you will. They made something out of nothing because this was always going to be a year where games are going to be canceled and bowl games are going to be canceled, and we're seeing them fall left and right. So to be able to carve something out of this season is again, tip of the cap. I don't want to say miraculous, but it's very impressive. And to use this as a building block year in 2020 is impressive.
I agree.
One thing I want to jump in though real quick and problematize this a little bit is while Clemson getting to the Orange Bowl in 2012 was a big step in building that program, them getting blown out the way that they did, it would be a very different situation for North Carolina to get blown out like that. Now, again, I think we all agree that that's not very unlikely to happen in this one, partly because Texas A&M just doesn't score 70 points against teams at the pace that Jimbo Fisher is going to play as a rule. You're not going to see 70 points from them anyway. But the other thing that really marked a turning point there is that they changed defensive coordinators. That it was that game that led them to fire Steele, who may actually be the next Auburn head coach. We don't know, and hire Brent Venables. So, and that obviously was a hire that has worked out really well for Clemson. And so making it to that level was a big factor in turning the corner as a program. Getting blown out forced them to reevaluate some things in terms of staff, and they made some staff changes and took that next step partly as a result of that. North Carolina doesn't need to make those staff changes. So moving into this game, it's that step forward, but I don't see this staff as needing an Armageddon to make the staff change necessary to move to the next level. I do want to clarify that.
I agree there. Greg, let me come to you since you'll be the one reporting on it. People are already, I don't want to say freaking out, but worried about opt-outs. I think we'll see plenty of them across the country. Florida's best wide receiver / tight end has already opted out of their bowl game. I mean, how do you think that process will go for North Carolina?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility for sure. We do know there has been some discussions about guys that potentially may opt out. We don't have any firm confirmation at this point in time, so I'm not going to speculate on who that may be. But I mean, if you think about guys that are potentially going to be able to play in the NFL and get drafted, I mean, you can make some educated guesses there. How much does playing in the Orange Bowl factor in as opposed to maybe the Cheez-It Bowl or the Gator Bowl? I mean, maybe that's part of the discussion. But the team took last week off. They were returning Sunday today to review Miami film, to have their sports banquet Sunday night, to have a walkthrough, and first bowl practice is on Monday. And so we will talk with the coaching staff and players early in the week, and hopefully by then we'll have some clarification on who's not participating and who's still up in the air.
I would say one really good sign for North Carolina is that Michael Carter has already said he's playing in the Senior Bowl. So he doesn't appear to be tremendously worried about getting hurt or, I don't want to play an extra game because I want to get my NFL combine freak on or whatever. So, and keep in mind, Michael Carter is a leader of this team. He is someone that everybody looks up to on the UNC team, and so he's saying he's playing in the Senior Bowl. So I got my real doubts about Michael Carter deciding, oh, now I'm going to opt out of the Orange Bowl. So I actually am not nearly as worried about opt-outs on the UNC side as Texas A&M ought to be worried about opt-outs on their side. And it's a two-headed question, right? Who opts out on either side of the ball. But I think it's a very positive marker for North Carolina that Michael Carter's already, he's committed to the Senior Bowl. So I'm not guessing he's going to miss out on the Orange Bowl.
And I think you said it right, Buck, that Texas A&M has a lot more to be concerned about there, partly because they were a team that was kind of playoff. This was they were shooting for playoff this year, and finishing fifth, being the first team left out. They're in a position where some of their guys are probably looking at this as, we just didn't quite get what we wanted. Whereas North Carolina right now is just in a different stage as a program in terms of the build. This is year 2, and they're a year ahead of schedule, even being in the Orange Bowl. And so you say, those guys are probably more inclined to feel like this is a game where they can go out and prove themselves one more time in a North Carolina uniform and continue to build the program. And that does matter for some of these guys. And I think Michael Carter is definitely one of those. He wants to leave his mark and his legacy at North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm already figuring that if North Carolina beats Texas A&M, it's because Texas A&M didn't want to be there. That will be
no doubt.
That's
that will be
the
that will be the the headline there, is because Texas A&M was just so disappointed about not making the playoff that they didn't really give a damn.
That's
just
have
hard, guys.
I have a very strong opinion on this, but I want to ask you guys first. If players elect not to play in the Orange Bowl, does that tarnish their legacy?
I'm going to step up and say no. If I'm not going to have any argument with any of them if even, and this is a strong statement, that say Javonte Williams decides, I want to get prepared for the NFL Combine, so I'm not going to play. I'm guessing the chances of that are like 95% against, but if he did, I'm going to say, do what you need to do. And we have this discussion all the time in terms of players that decide to leave for the NFL draft early. Gio Bernard and other guys that have left early, we really wanted you to come back. When you're a part of a team and you're on that team and you're doing everything in the world for that team and you've given up what you've given up to be a part of that team, if you're going to be on that team, we expect your 100% effort. But at some point, there are individual decisions to be made. Family, finances, considerations like that. So, anybody that gives any UNC player a difficult time for deciding to opt out. One player I'm thinking about is Daz Newsome. I already know he has a young family to think about. And, he's going to have to really work hard, to be a part of the NFL draft and get drafted by somebody. And he may feel like he needs to concentrate on those factors that he needs to get ready. And if he does, my hat's off to him. He's given me a lot of hours of viewing pleasure through his career at UNC. And if he decides to opt out, that's, more power to him. I think we should just, in general, as being sort of the de facto leader of the Tar Pit Premium Message Board, just lay off of those guys if they make that call. It's an individual call. They're not making it on a whim. They just didn't. The thought just didn't pop in their head one day. We need to opt out. They're balancing all of the pros and cons of it and making the best decision that they can make when they need to make it. So that's where I'm at with that, Tommy.
And I have very strong feelings on this. In that,
stronger than mine, Jason.
I don't know if they're stronger. Comparative is hard, but it would be very hard for someone to have stronger feelings on this one than I do. Because these are human decisions, right? We're talking, and for some of these guys, we're talking about generational wealth. You're talking about an opportunity to make sure that your children, should you have them, are able to inherit enough wealth and potential education and other advantages that generationally your family is in a different place forever.
As well as take care of mom and dad that have been there for you, through the whole process.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's just so many levels of this. And the other thing is, it's one thing. Now, if this were a college football playoff game and then you had guys that decided to opt out, that's a little different story, right? At that point, you're still competing for the goals that your team had for the season. But bowl games are a reward. They're an exhibition, ultimately. And it's a fun exhibition. It's a cool exhibition. You get, bowl game swag and all sorts of stuff that, there's no other avenue in college sports where all of a sudden, you play in this game and all of a sudden you're given all this stuff. Bowl games are their own thing. But North Carolina, when they started this season, obviously, every team starts out, and if you ask them what their goal is, well, we want to win a national championship. All right, well, if you don't win a national championship, well, then we want to win a conference. All right, well, if you're not going to win the conference, then we want to beat all our rivals, and we want to make a major bowl. Well, mission accomplished, and now for the guys that are moving on, that this is going to be this would be their last game at the team. They've already accomplished everything that you would really want to accomplish as a team in the season. Now we're in the postseason. This is after the season. And actually in some ways, so again, North Carolina losing this game is not program changing, right? It's not the same as if you lose to NC State or if you lose a conference game or lose a regular season game because you made the Orange Bowl. And ultimately, if you're one of those guys who's on the margin and really just needs to opt out, this also gives the young guys an opportunity to play. It gives them one extra game against a quality opponent to prepare them for next year as well. So that actually can benefit. But I can promise you that if anybody opts out, there is not one guy, not one in the locker room, not one teammate, not one coach who's going to sit there and be like, man, come on, you quit on us. Not one guy. All of them are going to be like, you go get yours, man.
Actually, I think it's going to affect Texas A&M more than it is North Carolina anyway. So, it's a wash either way, I think.
But nobody in either locker room is going to be going, man, that guy quit on us. Nobody.
Yeah.
No, the only people that would be saying that is perhaps, but hopefully not, some of the fans. I agree with what you said, but I mean, those guys have earned the right. I know one thing. If you gave me a lottery ticket and told me I had to sit over there in that chair for a week before I could go cash it and not do anything else, I'd sit in that chair for a week and not go out and cash it. So interesting stuff. Great discussion. Greg, you said it. Remind us all availability this coming week, pre-Christmas for Mack and players.
Yeah, we will get Mack and players on Monday. That's the first bowl practice in the morning, and we're going to have to exactly see how things are going to play out because with it being the COVID situation, bowls are not doing all the big events they typically do. And so the Orange Bowl actually has arrival dates for the teams set up for December 31st. So I guess they'll do a little bit of media on New Year's Day, and then you play the game on the 2nd. So North Carolina will be around Chapel Hill for the majority of the time. And they went home last week. So we haven't heard anything yet, but they all came in Saturday night and were tested. And that was going to be kind of a big hurdle to try to get through, make sure nobody, when they went home, picked up the virus, which obviously would not be a good thing. But we start on Monday, and then we'll have to see exactly how the bowl schedule shapes out, and that will determine availability.
Interesting stuff. We'll certainly look forward to seeing all your work at Inside Carolina Buck. Look forward to your columns in the coming couple weeks leading up to the Orange Bowl. And Jason, look forward to some tape breakdown. One thing Texas A&M has is a familiar coach for North Carolina and Mack Brown. So it should be
Tommy,
fun.
are you getting ready to end this call?
What do we need to talk about?
Yeah, I, by the way, have a good bit of coach's tape from and Jimbo Fisher's playbook when it comes to all this stuff. So
And
know that
I've got stuff to say too. So Tommy, I mean, listen.
Okay,
the staff
y'all.
has integrity. They wouldn't take it anyway. So,
all right.
But I can break some of Fisher's stuff down, so I probably will do some additional ones on that leading up to the bowl. By the way, I will make an ask for those who are listening still this late. My first book is coming out in March, April in the United States. If those of you who are out there are interested in anything on the Judaism, Christianity side, buy one for yourself, for your pastor, your rabbi, maybe your crazy conspiracy theory uncle. It doesn't, just grab some extra copies if you would. I'm gonna pitch this book a few more times, but thanks everybody.
But
Yes.
can they run a 7-yard out? Greg, you want to? I'm gonna let Buck end the show any way he wants to. But Greg, you're up.
We had some questions about how the ACC getting 3 teams into the New Year's Six bowls and the playoff factors into things. And so I kind of wanted to break that down. When the ACC signed this agreement with the Orange Bowl, I think they're currently in a 12-year deal that runs through the 2025 season, so the 2025-26 academic year. But basically what's happened is that when an ACC team plays in the Orange Bowl in a non-playoff year, the ACC the last 2 times, which was 15 and 18, got $27.5 million, which is a nice check. The issue is that when the Orange Bowl was actually in the playoff, the ACC team plays in either the Peach or the Fiesta. I believe I've got that right. And therefore not playing in the Orange Bowl, you don't get that cut. So 2 years ago, for example, Clemson wins the national championship in football. Virginia wins the national championship in basketball. And the ACC actually lost money revenue-wise. They were down $9 million from the year before, even though they had 2 national championships. And that was solely based on this relationship with the Orange Bowl. Bowl revenue that year was down $26.5 million, even though Clemson won the thing. And they still had another team in the Orange Bowl. In 2020, with how COVID-19 has affected everything, revenue streams is critically important. And so if you're looking for a silver lining, it's this. The Orange Bowl is not a playoff holder this year. So the ACC will get $27.5 million as contracted for that bowl. But because the ACC has 2 teams, now that Notre Dame is a full member, because the ACC has 2 teams in the playoff, you get $6 million each on top of that. Okay, so you have 27.5, you have 12 for Clemson and Notre Dame, and then the standard base payout is $66 million. So just for the bowl situation, it looks like the ACC is going to have roughly $106 million coming in revenue-wise. In 2020, with how all of these athletic departments have struggled so much, that is really a boon. And the fact that, I've complained about Notre Dame being allowed to play as a full member this year, but by them getting in, that's an extra $6 million that can be distributed across the conference. And that's a really important thing this year.
Absolutely. I mean, money
I might
makes
save
the
a couple
world go round.
sports.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is, even through it all, that is huge for the ACC. Buck, I tried to shut it down a little bit early, but evidently I was premature ejection on the off button. Shut it down.
I'm glad you said ejection.
It's going sideways, man. It's Sunday afternoon. This emergency.
You might want to pull the plug now, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad Greg has seen the errors of his ways as far as letting Notre Dame in for
the mighty dollar. The mighty dollar.
Yeah. I mean,
did you see the concerned observers tweet yesterday during that Notre Dame Clemson game that Dear Clemson, the ACC needs 2 teams in the playoff and a team in the Orange Bowl. Please remove your dogs from the Irish rear ends. Go ahead.
You know, I thought you were going to let me have the last word, Tommy, but I'm having a difficult time wiggling it in. You know, money is good. As having to run a business, which is inside Carolina, I understand that better than most people. But where I was going to go is on more of a personal note. You were talking about looking forward to my column next week. I'm taking next week off. Just a heads up for everybody. I run a column on January 1st, which is sort of a inside Carolina staple. And I'm going to be taking off the next week to spend with family during Christmas and to work on that column. So you won't see me back until a week ahead of the Orange Bowl, but I'll be back in full force, giving Greg a lot of trouble, talking junk about Jason and Tommy. So I just want to give everybody a heads up that this coming week, Buck Stops Here is going to stop today until the new year.
Good deal. Well deserved, my friend. You have to write a column like that nearly every day, every Monday through Friday of the year is pretty impressive.
And sometimes Sunday.
And so absolutely, and the morning after stuff too. It's always a pleasure to read. I'd be interested to look at last January's to see where you had Carolina football. You need to revisit that.
Well, mostly those columns are tongue in cheek and you know, meant to be comical, so there's no predictions involved there. But let me say for the record that in our preseason predictions, I predicted a loss to Florida State, Notre Dame, and that was it. I was off by 1 to Virginia. I don't think you gentlemen can match that.
We can.
Oh, but we can.
Okay, all right. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I don't remember.
So I missed one. That was the Florida State game. I had North Carolina winning that game, if you recall. And then I missed 2. I swapped them. So I had them,
so
I had them swapped,
right.
but I had the right
now,
record.
Now Greg can make his case now because you've already said you failed. So
because I had them beating Florida State and losing to Miami. And then losing to Virginia.
All right, Greg, make your case.
Me and
Jason
Staples had Carolina at 8-3. That's what matters, right?
No.
What?
We had them at 8-3.
No. I was off by 1 game.
And we nailed it. 8-3.
I was off by 1 game. I had them losing to Notre Dame and Florida State.
But you had them at 9-2.
Virginia's the only one I'm off.
But you had them at 9-2. See, we had it at 8-3.
That's still not. That's still not accurate.
That mitigates any.
I had Carolina losing.
Y'all are doing a
Notre Dame
lot of explaining
to Florida State,
here.
And who was the other one?
BC, and you got called out
baby.
for it.
Yeah,
Greg.
See, I had
Greg
Notre
is
Dame,
the only
Miami,
one on the show to get
and
called
Virginia.
out.
I feel like that was a solid bit. Just swap out the 2 Florida teams, and there you go.
You know, since I signed both of your paychecks, y'all might want to admit
you
that
win,
I'm
Buck.
right here.
Buck's right. You had them at 8-3 with Florida State, Virginia, and Notre Dame, and in the Orange Bowl.
I certainly did not have them in the Orange Bowl. I can say that.
You don't sign our paychecks for us to be worse at the prediction game, though. I'll say that.
I defer. I'm terrible at it. Buck, you're the best.
There you go, Tommy. You get a raise.
Yeah, Tommy knows how this game is played. He knows where
he does.
Just me. There's a reason.
I'm sorry that the pandemic is going to require me to reduce Jason and Greg's salaries.
But Tommy is just trying to get that Inside Carolina live at Hard Rock Stadium on January 2nd.
Yes, sir.
We'll try to make that happen.
Let's do it, folks. It's been fun. It's always been fun. You guys have a good holiday. I'm not sure. I don't guess we'll talk as a group before Christmas. So you guys be safe and healthy, and
and happy holidays to everybody. on this Zoom call and on Inside Carolina subscribers and everybody in general.
Indeed.
Yep.
No, we deserve a happy holidays in 2020, and let's, for goodness sake, hope for a better 2021.
Absolutely. Everybody, you've been listening to the Inside Carolina Emergency Orange Bowl Edition podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Ashley. That's Jason Staples, Greg Barnes, and the best boss in the world, Buck Sanders. You also need to support Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com, especially during these times. Go see them before Christmas. Get some swag, probably some Orange Bowl swag. Guys, it's been fun.
Pre-order my book.
Appreciate it.